In this video, we're going to go through how to set up a web store interface, and this is where you're actually using a Lizzy web store product to enhance your dealership. So basically, this is not your company website. This is where you're actually wanting to sell products on the internet, and instead of setting up a 3D cart or a Magento cart, you're actually using Lizzy's web store to do this. Now, there is no setup on the web store itself. You're not going to have to go like you do in 3D Cart, where you're going to have to go in and set up all your categories and all your parts and all your inventory and all that kind of stuff. You basically, with Lizzy Cart, you actually are setting up Lizzy to be more intelligent about what's going on. In other words, setting up categories and setting up image or adding images to items and that kind of stuff. And all of that information automatically displays on your web store without any input at all. And when orders come in, the orders automatically come into Lizzy, so there's nothing manual that you have to do to get that information back and forth. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is I am in settings, and then we're going to come down here to web store, and we're going to click on set up web store interface. Now, this is the first step to getting this working. And just a side note, you do need to set up this whole process with us, because we have to actually set up your domain and stuff. So there is a step before what we're actually covering in this video. So if you're interested in running a Lizzy store, you need to actually get in touch with us, and we'll set it up for you. So the first thing that we want to take a look at is we're going to create a new web store interface. Now, you can have as many different web stores as you want. The trick is that we want to actually set it up to make sure that Lizzy knows that it's supposed to be a Lizzy store. So to do this, I'm just going to come in here and we're going to create a new store, and we can call this anything we want. Obviously, the best thing to call it would be the name of the website. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to actually tell it that this is a Lizzy web store. Now, if we look at the headings up here, we have this is for if we're going to be importing stuff. So like if we're doing an eBay or Amazon where we're importing an Excel file or something, this is basically telling it to skip the first line because it has headers in it. In this case, we do not care about this because we don't import files this way. The other is whether we want to show inventory on the website. So if you want Lizzy to actually tell the customer how many of those things you have in stock, then you can tell it to show inventory. The next option is whether we're going to force a login, and this basically tells the system that the customer has got to be logged in if they're going to try to order anything. And then this option is to allow new accounts. This tells Lizzy that it's okay for just anybody to go to my web store and set up a new account so that they can place an order. An example of where you might not want to do this is where we have distributors that use our store, and they tell it that the dealer has to be logged in, and they do not allow new accounts because the warehouse itself is creating dealer accounts so that the dealer can log in. So it has the ability to force that information so that you get total control over what's going on. So I'm just going to leave those alone. We're going to go ahead and save this new site that we've created. And so right now what I want to do is I'm going to click on the radio button for that new store. So we're just going to click the radio button. You'll notice that this thing sort of edits itself. We don't really care about that when we're finishing this up. The first thing here is whether we want to have a specific logo for that particular site. The only thing that this is used for is when we print out invoices or when we print out a packing list that may have a logo on it. If you want to have a separate or a different logo for each of those printouts, then you can actually upload that logo so that it prints out. So if you have a dealership but your website is called something totally different, you can actually create a logo that actually has the name of the website on it so the customer doesn't get confused when you start shipping stuff to them. Once we get that, we'll go through these options here. We have whether we want to show in stock serialized. If you check this box, you're basically telling Lizzy that you want her to look at all your serialized inventory and automatically put links or information about those products on the website automatically. Now it automatically does this. It automatically shows any pictures that you have of the units, and it automatically removes them once they're sold. So it has the ability to automatically keep up with all that stuff for you. Whether we want to only show stock items, so I carry Honda, and I can get every Honda part, but I only want to show the ones I have in stock on the website. Well, if I check that box, that's what it's going to do. The allow upload CSV orders is really for whether or not I have a dealer, for example, that wants to upload orders to me instead of having to hand type everything. The web store does allow you to be able to upload orders, which is basically just a file of part numbers and quantities. This is a very important field here. The store URL is going to be the URL of whatever store you're supporting. So basically you're going to come to us and you're going to say, hey, I want to, or let's just say we set up a test demo for you. So let's say the name of your business is Whack-A-Mole. We would set up a domain called whackamole.nizics.com for you to test with. Eventually, you're going to give us an actual URL. That information has to be put in here because this is what allows Lizzy to know what website it's tying to when orders are coming in or when the web store is asking for inventory information. So it's very critical that you get this in here and get it right. Whether we're going to require email verification when they sign up. If a customer signs up, do we want to email them and have them click a link on the email to make sure that that email is valid before we actually allow them to place an order? That's all this is for. And then the rest of this is fairly common sense. Out of stock message, prefix length, we don't really need to worry about. Delimiter, we don't worry about if it's a Lizzy site. Order email. This email here is if you want Lizzy to send, or the web store to send an email to you every time a customer places an order on the website, then you can fill in your email address here and Lizzy will do that. And then you've got a shipping disclaimer. What payment methods do you want to show up on the web store when people are cashing out? We've got social links, customer service links. You can fill in your email and additional information there. And then you've got other just miscellaneous stuff about us, FAQs, policies, and more info. Once you get that set up, you're just going to hit save. Now, that is the process of getting the web store set up. And now the next step is we've got to go over here to vendor options and actually tell the system what vendors we want to show on what websites. So again, you can have as many different websites in Lizzy as you want. You can support multiple Lizzy sites, Lizzy stores, if you want to have that. But at this point, we are telling it that what vendors I want to show on which site. So I could have a website dedicated to one vendor and everything is fine. I just tell it that that's the only vendor I want to show up. So let's just say that we're going to come down here and we'll go to American Honda. So this is my vendor. Also over here, I can upload an image that's going to be used for the serialized items. So when it lists out the serialized sections, it'll give you a list of vendors that the customer can pick, kind of like categories. This allows you to upload a custom logo or an image that you want to have to represent that particular vendor. And then down here is where I tell it what websites I want this particular vendor to show on. So right now we have Lizzy and New Store. These are two Lizzy stores. And I've told it I only want this particular vendor to show up on the Lizzy store. I don't want it to show up on this New Store. So this will automatically take every single part that is in inventory and show it for this particular vendor on that website. Now, the category information and you can look up the videos on setting up categories and things for parts. All of that stuff is automatically used on the web store. So when I go in and start setting up different categories for an item, that item will immediately start showing up on the web store in that particular category, or multiple categories if we set it up that way. So the last step here, and is not nearly as critical as the first two, is whether or not we are going to feature a particular vendor on a slide. So we can go to our slide, and this will show up at the top of the screen, and we can set up multiple slides and notes that we want to have in there for the web store. Now, let's go over here and locate an item real quick. And I just want to mention a few things here. So we have our category, which is the main category for, it's here, a main category for the item. This is a helmet, or this is a belt. But on the website, we may want that thing to show up in multiple and even in possibly multiple subcategories of things on the web store. So this is where we can actually go in and assign as many different categories or subcategories to this item as we want. If we want this item to show up in the main website when it first comes up, we have to give it a category. Otherwise, the only way for the customer to find the part is either through a parts lookup system, or they can go in and manually type in the part number and find it. But it's not just going to show up anywhere unless it has a category. So it is critical that it have at least one category for the thing to show up on the website. In addition to that, if we go up here to the web store tab on this particular item, you can see here that by default, Lizzy has said that we're going to show this item on the Lizzy store. But I can also select whether I want to feature this item, which will actually make it show up at the top of the list, or I can select not to show this particular item on the store at all. So even though I told it that I want the entire vendor to show on this particular website, I can turn certain parts off of that particular website if I want in it, and I can also turn them on. So as an example, I did not tell it that I want this vendor to show on the new store, but I can tell it that I would like for it to show on there even though the vendor hasn't been turned on. So it's pretty dynamic in the way that it deals with all of that stuff. Now, we will have some other videos to get into a little bit more depth with working on the web store, uploading images, setting up categories, that kind of thing. But that's the high-level overview of getting the website set up to begin with so that things start to show and people can start to buy things.